and is historical. But I have other reasons to pay tribute to Samir Amin. One of the first reason is that Samir Amin is part of these kind of African intellectuals who came to support the Guinean school when France has left Guinea and has taken all its nationals to go with them, to go back to Europe. Samir, Gizerbo, Abdou Memer Fote, Beanzin, all of them came to support the Guinean school. And these are the ones who gave us trust and confidence in ourselves. And it is when it is from the discussion and the reflection of that group that Abdul Mumini wrote the first reform of the educational system to adjust it to the new situation of the nation states in Africa. That was first. So Samir Amin was there. He paved the way to what we might call the 3-year plan in Guinea, just like the one in Mali. And chance had it that starting from 1964, we met again at the University of Dakar. So I'm saying that our generation has worked with Samir Amin since 1960, as was mentioned by Professor Kassé. And we, as a teacher at the Faculty of Economic Science, we knew him only by name. We knew his teaching through his students who used to tell us about them. So we knew Samir Amin without being his real students in his classes. And the second reason is that Samir Amin himself was an organic intellectual, borderless intellectual. It is one of the rare intellectuals who has been reading the historians, studied the historians and the history, and he studied Eric William, Slavery and Capitalism, Abdoulaye, the Company of Senegal, but also he read Walter Rodney, How European Dumped Africa and the Guinea Coast, and our work on the Wallo Kingdom, which was also an opportunity for him to write the Primal Adase. He used to make economy understandable because he had a social look, he had a political look in relation to economics. For him, economy was not just calculation, profits and losses. But that's why we need to pay tribute to Samir Amin. The third reason is that Samir Amin, it was said here over and over, has supported many people for the setting up of institution. In 1972, he was here for the creation of the Association of the African Historians. He supported us. In 1973, he was here for the creation of Codestria. He invited us for the creation. This is to say that Samir Amin is organizer, even though he did not like bureaucracy, but he participated to the creation of organization. I would not say more than that, except that we have been lucky enough to work with him, to live with him. And the question that we may ask now, and that I'm asking myself, is why Samir, Tandika, myself have been trapped into Dakar for half a century. Why Dakar has become our anchor, our port of anchor. And we know that Samir used to travel a lot, but he always came back to Dakar. I am living in Conakry, 1 hour away from here, but I'm always in Dakar. Tandika is from Malawi, but he's always in Dakar. We are always in Dakar. So this is to say, I can only but pay a tribute to Samir Amin And as Abdullahi used to say in the acknowledgement he made in the book he wrote, these are great intellectuals who can see far away, who are foresighted, and the future have proven them right, even though they have been criticized. Samir was right in many points of view. That's why we should continue reading him and revisiting him, even though we have to pay a tribute to him, question him for the welfare of the African population. I thank you. Thank you, Bubakar. Mike, on Tampa, we can't hear him. The mic is not on. The mic is not on. Yes. Yes, like most of the speaker were speaking in French, I will speak in English. I think that we stand the car.
Graduate student in the 60s and up to 1970, I did read Samir Amin since I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison for my PhD. And of course, I read the monthly review regularly, so his articles were there, so I knew who he was. But it wasn't until 1988 that I was chosen by the Swedish Agency for Research Cooperation with Developing Countries to chair an evaluation panel because they were providing support for the research program of the Third World Forum on Alternative Futures for Africa. So I was chosen chair of this panel, which included the late Claude Meissou, a well-known French anthropologist, Professor Benondulu, who is now the governor of the Central Bank of Tanzania, and Professor Yoran Hayden, or Yoran Hayden, as some people call him, was a professor of political science at the University of Florida. So we were given 10 books to read, which were published by the Third World Forum, and we were supposed to come to Africa for a month to evaluate Samir Amin. So we came here in February 1989, and we were also supposed to go to two, as it was said here that Samir was a person who helped create institutions. He told us that his best two antennas came here, and one of the most interesting thing was, well, first let me that the Lily Funu, who were his close collaborators, and they created a new family for me in Dakar. When I came here, like many people said, I usually stop by to see Samir and spend the lots of time talking with him, discussing my publications or his publications and others. We had a very interesting discussion because Samir was a man of great integrity. He would defend his positions and the position of the other writers who were published in this series without fearing that the evaluation committee might make a decision which would be inimical to him. So as a matter of fact, he was worried about a couple of people on the evaluation committee, but we gave an unanimous approval. We gave a unanimous recommendation to SADC that he had to be supported because he represented a very needed alternative view of Africa, an alternative view of the world economy, which was needed for Africans. As Nick pointed out, his analysis of the historical development of economies in Africa is extremely useful even until today. For example, his geography of the economic exploitation which Tanika referred to, is extremely important to understand in terms of any change we want into African economies, and especially in the area of agriculture. I also came here in 2001 at the request of Bernard Funu to participate in a forum on globalization in Africa, what alternatives for Africa. And Bernard had wanted to make it close to Samir's birthday, his 70th birthday, but unfortunately we couldn't wait that too long, so it took place in April of 2001. I was then a UN bureaucrat, but in spite of that, I took leave of absence to come to answer. And also on the trip was my boss at the UNDP, was also a scholar, a Congolese economist. We came both of us to present papers at this. And one of the interesting discussions that came out was, of course, the question of how can Africa emancipate itself? What are the alternatives that Africa has in terms of escaping the perpetual domination of the developed countries? And Samir referred us to many of the critical points he has been defending, especially the whole question of self-reliance, the whole question of working together in terms of facing the challenge, especially in the terms of development. He pointed out that one cannot expect Africa to develop if it does not industrialize. And industrialization also requires the development of agriculture, that agriculture must be industrialized, and that we must be able to produce not only export crop or things that we send out, we must produce capital goods that can help us to produce other goods. And this was one of the constant themes in his analysis of African economies. My last last contact with Samir was when I was here in 2009, 2010 as interim director of the Africa Governance Institute. He was then in Paris, and I told him that I need him to come here because I was holding a seminar, a forum on developmental governance. Although Samir rejects this whole idea of governance, if this was a UN stuff, but he came anyway. He came to talk about development, and his keynote address was extremely wonderful because it did have a great influence on how other people did. So I think that we have to be very thankful for his work and continue to read it. I remember the other day when we spoke about the Cabral, Jody Chikata said we are in some disciplines where you are expected to quote people who have published in the last 2 years. I think we have to go back to the Cabrals, the Fanon, and Samir, Amin, and others to be able to have a better understanding of our predicament. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci. Dembélé, et puis one. On n'est pas loin de 6 heures, donc on va faire des heures plus courtes.
Oui, je vais préparer quelque chose. Merci, Fatou.
Thank you, Fatou. So I was honored and had also the great privilege to have worked or to have been with Samir for hours and hours in Kodesria with Ibrahima and also Sanya. They told me to write something on him, and we spent hours talking about his career, and that is the book that we launched at the Social Forum, World Global Social Forum in 2011, and that, as Nongo said a bit earlier, we called it the simple way. It is true that also the generosity a bit earlier. Lily or others have talked about the generosity of Samir Amin. So the generosity to share knowledge, the availability of Samir. I mean, Ibrahim Salu was saying that we were using Samir too much because, yes, because he was always available. He was always available. In 2013, he launched the forum, the Saturdays of Economy, with Nongo, my friend and brilliant friend Nongo Sila that you have listened to. We launched that forum. So it was Samir who gave the opening address, and he been between 2013 to 2018, he came 5 times to the forum. And every time we called him and we told him, are you going to come to chair? He said, no, I want you to eat, to rest, but no problem. I will come and I will chair that. So he came and he spent time with us, and he was the first one there. The last time was in March for the bicentenary of Maxis, so that was in here, and wanted to celebrate that. So I came, and most of the time I'm the first in those forum. But when I came, I found Samir there. I told him, Samir, what are you doing here? And no problem, but anyway, I have to be here. So if people are here or not, I don't care. You have invited me, I'm going to be here. It was that generosity to share his knowledge, which kind of characterized Samir Amin. And he helped us to understand the evolution of the world. So given that we're talking about globalization, given that the people who idealize those systems were talking about an era of prosperity for everybody, Samir was talking about the empire of chaos, and the chaos is here. So you have seen what is happening every day or today in the world, and these are the intellectual audacities of Samir that helped us to better understand the world. And it is a heritage that we have to nurture, develop, and also make sure that we remain faithful to the ideas of Samir. May he rest in peace. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Abdurrahman.
I'm in charge of the communication at Codestria, and I'm very recognition and grateful to the institution for giving me the possibility of discussing and working directly with some intellectuals, some high-level intellectuals of this continent. I am Ibrahim Masal and Aminata Sise. Samir was one of the people that I have most disturbed to some extent, so to speak. I think from 2011 and 2008 or 2017, I had to organize at least 14 interviews and to have meetings with him. The first one, it was not easy. The first time, it was not easy at all because we were in Rabat, and it was the Voice of America that wanted to interview him, and he was very consenting. He did not want to talk to the Voix de l'Amérique, and he told me that, and I told him that if you do not talk to the Voice of America, this will be difficult. It's a forum, even though you do not share their editorial line, try at least to speak, and it is your message that would be heard. He said that, well, I don't know, I don't want to talk to them, but let me see. The next day, he was ready, he was open, and he accepted the principle of speaking to with Idrissa file history. We have transformed his office into a kind of an office for I made the television to come for him to talk, to prepare, to explain what is Cordesria, even though he was not very hot about it. For him to communicate, we should communicate on the ideas, on the Pan-Africanism, on the change of society, on institutions themselves. I did not agree, but we find a compromise. And for me, we should talk about Cordesria because it was Cordesria that was paying me, and I said not to talk about Cordesria was to some extent not to fulfill my mission. But we found a compromise. And then when he discussed with Bai Omar Gay, there was a question that was raised. It was about PSE Senegal Emergence or Emerging Senegal. It was like, fire. And it was just like a lot of smoke by the authorities. The next day, I found Samir, who was very fragile. He told me, Abda, there is something. He used to call me Abdurrahman. He told me there is something that I do not want. The Senegalese think that I am here to give them lessons. So I do not know which method we should try to use in order to correct this. And I told him that we will not talk to the authorities who understand. And second, I will try to find an appointment with Le Soleil and you're going to explain yourself. And the next day, and he said, is the journalist there? He said the journalist came in, he was on time, and we went into a place where he could smoke, and the interview took place there. This is to say that he had facilitated me my work. He was one of those intellectuals that were very easy to deal with, and he used to welcome me and thank you to Lily, who has facilitated our task in meeting him. I think that today it is very important for us, whether we are from Trust Africa or from the Third World Forum or from Cordesria, it is today that that the work of communication or the work of dissemination of his work has to start. And talking about his work, what he was interested in was not for us to take his work, but to have some forum for Africans to be together to discuss. We may not be agree with him, but at least it is important to have debate and for the continuation of the debate. I thank you. For me, he is not dead. He is still with us, and he will always be with us here. Shagay, and then after you. Thank you. I would like to greetings to all of you, brothers and sisters, and I would like, first of all, to say that it is very important for me, who is working at ENDA Chairman, an institution which Samir has set up to take the floor here on behalf of that institution. First of all, I would like to say that Samir knew that he was not an eternal human being, and it is no doubt because of that he was writing a lot. But he was also a very strategic person, and this is for that reason that he initiated as many institutions as he could. And also in the last moments of his life, which we have lived together, we have shared together. I think that he thought that his mission at the end was to the various institutions that he had created, institutions that were created at the same time, and to which he had given functions and missions that were complementary but different. And recognize Cordesria with and Chairman and the Third World Forum. This is what has produced what we call today the Alternative Report on Africa, which is one of the last initiatives that he had taken, and one of the last event which he had taken part in the launching of the report. So it was important for me to come here to talk about that report in order to present it to all the people who for whom Samir Amin represented something. The number 0 of this report was launched in July, and he has contributed a lot to it, not just in the development of the initiative, but also in its content. And the first issue, number one, is being prepared. And I think that it will be good for us, all of us here, for whom Samir represented something. We should, through this report, continue his work and also so achieve the objective that he has set for himself. And I thank you very much for your kind attention. My name Usama Osman. I am from the University of Khartoum in Sudan. I did not know Samin personally, but I knew the figure. I read his books, and I met him the last time when I came here in 2015 during the General Assembly of Cote d'Ivoire. And several times I met him in Paris with Marema and other people he worked with. But I had the blessing of accompanying Samir for the last miles, I would say, during the funerals. I went to the chair through a door that was not the closest of the grave, and I asked for somebody how to get there. And he asked me, "Are you going to Samir's funeral?" And told me, "Come with me." And I went with him, and he was the driver of the car that was taking the and that was the destination to his funerals. I have my own nephew who is doing a PhD doctorate and who has resuscitated Samir Amin. He had a lot of problem with his supervisor, and at the time we did not do PhD thesis without mentioning Samir Amin. Now this has become a problem with the change everything. But we can say that there is a kind of efforts, a deliberate effort of some academics in the universities of the North to try to eradicate from their memories the work of Samir Amin. And this imposes to us some kind of responsibility of holding tight and to mention Samir Amin, to quote him, and to encourage the students to read him because it is important. And also nowadays with the events that we are faced with confirm his vision that he was a great visionary. You see with the yellow jackets and so on, everything that there is something in the street, we can see that Samir had said something with regard to that. I thank you.
I've heard Wakar Bari said that he's 1 hour flight from here to Conakry. So me, I am in 20 minutes. I'm just I'm closer than you. But I just wanted to say two things. On I think that the 5 institutions that are in Dakar should work together for the intellectual tribute that we were talking about. We have UCAD, the Sheikh Anta Diop University, and the Third World Global Forum IDEP, and the Cote d'Ivoire. So these are institutions in which Samir had done a lot. So I think that they have to work together to make an intellectual tribute. So Sharif has already started to do that, and but there are other things that we have to think, so not only for that symposium that we are talking about, but those institutions has to work together. That's what I'm saying. So second point is that if you read up that note, it is talking about the beginning of Cote d'Ivoire, and it is talking about Samir as a strategy maker, and he is talking about why they have decided to make sure that Cote d'Ivoire is in a French-speaking country, because that was one of the conditions for it to be Pan-African. He was saying that he was convinced that if Cote d'Ivoire had its headquarters in a French-speaking country, he wouldn't be as African as it is if if it then compared if it was in a English speaking country. So the same thing that he was saying is that he was hesitant about that university encourage of Kodesbria. So the way in which that was in 73 when we know that we can't. So
until 1970, 72 or 71. So Samir was acutely aware of the need for transformation and the fact that that transformation hadn't really moved much. And therefore locating Codestria in a university setting was going to restrict the possibilities for having the kind of independent and bold thinking that he was calling for, that his understanding of what the mission of Codestria was. And I think those two terms he kept reminding us over the last. I think he saw the end coming in a sense, because he was becoming more and more impatient. First of all, to get his works out. Two, he was from the beginning. If you see how he was talking about Kodesri and the reason why it was set up, the main point wasn't only about scholarship; it was about changing the world, basically making the world better. So, independent and bold thinking on contemporary problems of the world. From the point of view of the South, from the point of view of Africa, were his main concerns. And he was, I think, one thing Sheikh didn't say was that he donated his library to ENDA, and it is called Bibliothèque Populaire de Développement, Popular Library for Development. Now, it's interesting he didn't give the library his personal library to a university or to Kodesria, because he wants the library to be accessible to a larger audience, right, to a popular audience. And I think he was interested in scholarship, the best of scholarship that there could be, but at the same time too, the linkages with social movements, with working people, because that linkage is the condition for the changes that we are hoping for to happen. So I think it's very important that maybe going forward we keep that in mind, and that is one thing that certainly African scholarship needs to do a little bit more of, interacting with the different audiences that we could bring together for transformation.
Bien, je vous remercie.
Okay, thank you. Thank to everybody. I think that there is no summary to be done. And what we wanted to do this afternoon was just to pay tribute to someone who was amongst us. You know what is curious in Senegal? No one ever asked if Samir Amin was a white man or an African man or a black man, or was he an Arabic or someone. So he was just amongst us, but he was just a part of us. But that us is really large, and I think that he was a very extraordinary person that we have paid a tribute to this afternoon. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oui, vas-y.
Merci beaucoup, professeur Fatsuso.
Thank you very much, Professor Fatsuso. Dear colleague, there is someone who lost his or her glasses, blue ones. So if you have seen some blue glasses, would you please leave them at the Codesia office? So the people at the Codesia office are looking for Ngoichi Bambe. So Ngoichi Bambe, so would you please go and meet the people that are in the Codesia? So the dinner gala is going to start at 2000. That's where we used to have lunch break. So it's gonna start at 2000. So at the room where we have lunch. So you have 2 hours to rest, because it is going to be a dancing party. So you have to come and be ready to dance. Make sure that you are ready to dance. Thank you and enjoy your.
Merci beaucoup, professeur Fatousso. C'était bien, les témoignages étaient very well done, very well said. Not too emphatic. No, but it was fast with those things. Yes, yes. To speak otherwise about processing.